Nobody tells you this, but one of the hardest parts about repairing a relationship is believing them when they finally start trying. Because when you're hurt or you've just gotten in a fight, it's really easy to dismiss the very thing you've been asking them to do because you're still salty about everything that happened. They call, you don't answer the phone. They apologize, you respond with, mm-hmm. When they make any effort at all, you make sure they know, well, you should have done that a long time ago. I think we all do this because there's a little voice in our head that says, I'm gonna make you pay. Yeah, make them suffer. Because if we're being honest, there's a part of us that makes them want to feel exactly what we've been feeling. Trust me, I get it. Because after the fight my sister and I had, I could have done exactly that. I could have ignored her, given her attitude, made sure she knew she had a lot of making up to do. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a part of me that wanted to. But I've done enough vindictive shit in my relationships to know vindictive shit has never gotten me what I actually wanted. Because what I actually wanted wasn't to win. It wasn't to make her feel bad, and it wasn't to prove a point. What I really want is a relationship with her. And if that's actually true, I gotta stop asking myself, how do I make her feel what I feel? And start asking, how do we get there? And as it turns out, I didn't have to wait very long because later that night, my phone buzzed. And what she said, I wasn't expecting. Now, texting after a fight isn't actually unusual for us. Believe it or not, we've actually gotten pretty good at apologizing. One of us eventually reaches out, we apologize, clear things up that got lost in the argument, then move on. But this time, it felt different because instead of just apologizing, she acknowledged that what I was going through with my other sister was hard. She said she wanted peace. She said she wanted a relationship. And she even invited me to hang out. And honestly, I just sat there staring at my phone. Not because everything was magically fixed. It wasn't. But because after all of these years, I finally felt seen. Now, don't get me wrong. I still defended myself a little. I'm human. But after that, I reminded her that if she ever needed to vent, she could come to me. Whether she actually trusts me enough to do that is still up for debate. Or maybe that's just another story my brain is telling me. I told her that maybe being around each other feels so triggering because there's so much water under the bridge. Because the truth is, there's so much history. So many conversations that didn't go well. After enough of those, your body starts bracing for impact before either of you even says anything. So I reassured her that maybe if we give each other enough good experiences, eventually we won't feel the need to brace quite so hard. Then we stopped texting. A week or two later, I had to leave town. But while I was gone, my sister started doing something she almost never does. She started reaching out first. I could feel that little voice calling again. Oh, all of a sudden she cares. And that's when I caught myself. Because yeah, I was still hurt. But thankfully, that's when I realized I keep saying I want our relationship to change. But if I keep asking her to try while refusing not to notice when she does, what chance do we really have? So I answered. She texted me about things she actually knew I cared about. If you saw the text, you'd probably think, that's it. Yeah, that was it. Because when you've spent years wondering if somebody cares as much as you do, little things don't feel little anymore. When I got back to LA, we finally made plans to hang out. Her kids were there too, so I figured we were gonna spend the afternoon chasing kids all day. But before we sat down, she asked my mom to watch them. And when one of her kids inevitably came to say, Mom, 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 she'd smile and say, hey, it's adult time. I don't think I ever told her this, but that meant a lot to me. Because for a really long time, one of the stories I've been carrying around is that I'm just not a priority for her. And if I'm being really honest, I think it goes way deeper than just my sister. Sometimes being the youngest feels like spending your whole life trying to catch up. And now that I'm an adult, with a marriage, with a business, with a home halfway across the world, it can sometimes feel like my life doesn't count the same because it doesn't look like everyone else's. I'm not a parent. I chose a different life. And sometimes, whether anyone means to or not, the story my brain tells me is that I'm easier to overlook than I am to understand. So when she protected that time, I didn't just feel included. I felt like I mattered. But what felt so good wasn't some big Hallmark movie moment. It was a bunch of little things. She made time for us. She protected that time. She asked questions. She listened. She stayed engaged. Something that's really hard for parents to do, especially when their kids are around. And she genuinely seemed interested in what I had to say. That felt new, different. After years of fighting the way we have, different was enough. Don't get me wrong, we weren't suddenly emotionally evolved siblings who could communicate perfectly. There were definitely moments where she'd say something triggering, or I'd say something triggering. But instead of letting those uncomfortable moments become another fight, we'd look away for a second, take a breath, awkwardly laugh, or change the subject. And then we just kept talking. Repairing a relationship doesn't happen because one conversation changes everything. It happens because you stop letting one uncomfortable moment erase all the good ones. The funny thing is, in my last video, I was going on and on about a story my sister had been carrying about me. And this time, I realized I was doing the exact same thing. I was responding to a story I'd been carrying about her. And since then, it's been really nice, because lately she's been answering my calls and responding to my texts. I don't know where our relationship will be 5 years from now, but I do know this. It feels a hell of a lot different than it did a month ago. If stories like this are your thing, sign up for my newsletter, Tawny Unlearns the BS. I don't send it on a schedule. I send it when life humbles me, when I learn something worth sharing, or when I'm in the middle of unlearning some new bullshit. You can find a link in the description. Okay, I'm done now. Thanks for coming to my Tawny Talk.